Hello and welcome back to Aisha Nairi TV, where we are talking about the creative life and being a creative entrepreneur. I am your host, guide. I don't know. My name is Aisha Nairi, and thank you all so much for joining me on this video today. And today's Independence Day. Happy Independence Day. Well, American Independence Day. I am American, and I am based in North Carolina by root of New Jersey. I am a Jersey girl, born and raised. So happy Independence Day. And I thought long and hard about what I wanted today's video to be, and if I was even gonna do one, because I'm like, well, it's Independence Day, it's a holiday, and everyone's off. But we're creative entrepreneurs, so yeah, days off don't really work the same way for us. It can, because we create our own schedule. I figured, well, you know what? This is a great day to talk about something that often isn't talked about, but it's near and dear to my heart, of why I want to see more creative entrepreneurs out there and more people putting out their creative endeavors. We live in a country that is, we are free. And that means through many different channels, we are allowed to legally to do a lot of things we want to do. Yes, there are laws governing, because we don't want to take over and encroach upon other people's freedoms as well. But and I am proud to live in a place that's free. Do I think we have a perfect country? No, we do not. And that's understandable that people would see that. If you are looking at my videos and my name, I am an African American woman. Well, I prefer to say I'm a black woman, whatever we're calling ourselves now. But I'm black. I'm a black woman. So there's a lot of things that come with that being in this country. And this isn't a video about just race. It's really about something completely different. But I just wanted to point it out that freedoms and some of the things that we have available to us were not always available to me. If I lived in a different time period, I would not be legally allowed to do certain things. And that never falls lightly to me. Like, I always remembered that, and I am one of those citizens. I take my responsibility as being a citizen very strongly, and so I use my civic duties to the fullest extent. I vote, I write letters, I protest, I speak up when we are not living up to when we are not delivering on the promises that we said we were going to, and when we're not doing our best. So I am that citizen. I take my job as a citizen very, very seriously, and I am proud. So happy birthday, America. I am proud to be here, and I know we have a long way to go. And what, pray tell, does this have to do with being a creative entrepreneur? Here's the thing. I will often hear when people say, I don't want my art to get political, or they choose to use their creative projects for just light, happy things all the time. And that's cool. Totally cool, because it's your art. So do what you want with your art. I just want you creating. I want you sharing. And I want you getting out there and having the resources brought back to you so you can continue doing it. So you do what you can. That said, the truth is, artists have always helped to bring about some sort of change. Artists have always been on the side of revolution and creative, and like pushing things forward and helping to change the landscape. And why, you may say? Because artists, whether they are purposely doing it or not, artists are telling stories. So they're telling their story. So they're telling the story of what they're experiencing around them. So depending on who you are and what you're experiencing, or what you're living, or what you are seeing being done to other people, That's part of your story now. So you can share it. And that's going to help change and transform the landscape around you just by telling your story. As a Black woman, the stories I tell, I'm going to influence someone else. I'm going to bring someone else into my existence that they wouldn't have experienced if they're not a Black woman. And even if they are, if they're not growing up the way I grew up, I'm sharing part of my experience. And by some, that might be considered political or radical, through no fault of my own, if I'm just telling my story. But it's mine, and those are my stories to tell. And as a creative person, I should and want to tell them. Also, artists continue and create, actually. Like, they're responsible for the social imaginary of a group. And the social imaginary is everything that make up, it's beyond culture. It's how we know that the bad guys were black hats and the good guys were white hats. It's how they use their storytelling and presentation to start to shape how people see things and start to shape the stories on a full scale, and the images and the representation and the symbols. That all comes from creatives. That is all part of how artists keep telling the story. So you shape that. So if you don't like how stereotypes or presentations or how the story is being manipulated by laws and government and by people who are just trying to push their agenda, well, as a creative, you can change that from a different angle. And the more you change it, then the more people are going to say, but wait a minute. And then you start to see some actual radical change. So, yeah, our artists have always been political because they're telling stories and they're telling their stories. And there's so many God, it's one of those things. It is what it is. It's always been. It's nothing new. Like writers and painters, even your happiest, cheeriest painters or writers or creatives, you'll find examples of them putting something out there to make a statement because they were moved to make a statement. And no one would come up to them now and say, oh my God, you need to stop being so political. So that kind of burns me up whenever someone is in a higher, they've reached an artistic claim or a creative career level to the point that they have a lot of influence and their messages can get out to more people because they're famous or they have a stronger network, and they say something in that they want to see, or as a right, or they say something that others deem as political, and people jump on them and say, I don't want to hear from you. I just want you to do XYZ. Shut up and act, or shut up and paint. Or, I don't want to hear your politics. And here's my thoughts about that. If that person is a citizen, they have an obligation and responsibility to do their civic duties just like everybody else. And if they just happen to have a bigger platform, but they're still a citizen. But there are lobbyists out there, and there are politicians, and there are other people that are not creative people, but they're also doing what they consider their civic duty, and they're making change happen too. So, yeah, as I go through my career, people might not like what I have to say, but I think that we all have a responsibility to keep conducting ourselves and maintain our civic responsibilities, just like other citizens. And if it's when people try to force it on people, that's different. And so maybe some people are like, well, they're trying to force it on me because I see them all the time. Well, that's just because they have a bigger platform, but they're not going to force you. They're trying to influence you just like you're trying to influence other people. Such is life. But yeah, as artists as a whole, we are the keeper of the stories. So no matter what is happening politically, in government, and laws and such. But we are the keeper of the stories, and we are the tellers of the stories. So please tell your stories. This Independence Day, I want you to think about that. Please tell your stories. Even if your story is political, even if your story is going to rile up, I think more people need to tell their real, authentic stories. And if there's a story of someone else that you've seen that has moved you in a way, and you want to find a way to tell that story on their behalf or including them, first talk to them. I hope you're doing research, but tell the stories that move you, because it does make a difference when people go through and study the history of any time period. They will be looking, they don't just look at the laws that were passed, because honestly historians and stuff, like, they get that could be influenced. When people are studying different time periods, they part of that is looking at what the artists have left behind, and looking at the sculptures and the stories and the offerings of the artists, and that tells them a lot about the culture and the morals and the what was important to that culture, and that tells a lot about who a people are. When we stop telling our stories, that means someone else is going to tell them for us, and that's what's going to survive. So if you're a creative entrepreneur, if you're a creative person, you tell your story. You be in charge of that. You tell that story of how you want to be shared. You put it out there what moves you. You put it out there what pains you. You put it out there about your struggles. You use your creative gifts to share with them, the world, what is going on now. In best case scenario, you'll influence, but in worst case scenario, you'll have left something behind to show what was of value to you. And we still have the freedom to do that. And honestly, even if we don't, the thing is, creative people always find a way. Always. Even if bans are put up, even if people try to tell them no, creative people, we always find a way. Always. So keep finding a way and keep doing it and keep sharing it. Make it happen. Do it. Don't be afraid because you think it's too political. God, and I have so many examples of this. So this is the example I picked out for today. Norman Rockwell. And I love his pieces. And their pieces aren't necessarily for me per se. Like, I don't see myself reflected, like, from a skin tone point of view. But I see the ideals of family and civic duty and being an American. And